The strange thing about this case isn't the device or the location or even the timing. It's the silence. 5 years. And no one could explain how a man walked through one of the most heavily watched cities in America, planted 2 pipe bombs, slipped into the night, and vanished until last week. What finally exposed him wasn't DNA or fingerprints or a confession. It was a pattern in the way he moved, and a Chihuahua. The story begins the evening of January 5th, 2021. Washington, D.C. was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes right before a historic storm. Crowds were arriving for the next day's rally. Police presence was high. Every block had at least one surveillance camera watching the sidewalks. Around 7:40 p.m., a pedestrian walking near South Capitol Street reported something unusual near the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee. A small device in a backpack tucked beside a bench. Minutes later, another device was found a few blocks away near the Republican headquarters. 2 pipe bombs, both real, both capable of mass casualties. The devices were disabled. Streets were shut down. Investigators swarmed the area, pulling CCTV feeds from every public camera within a 2-mile radius. Dozens of hard drives, thousands of hours. And in the middle of all that video, they found him. A man wearing a hooded sweatshirt, gloves, a mask, and a backpack. He walked with an unusually smooth gait, almost controlled, like someone trying not to be noticed. He sat on a bench for exactly 10 minutes. He placed the device under the edge of the seat, and then he walked away, disappearing into a dark side street with no cameras. His face never appeared clearly. His hands were covered. His phone was never detected. The FBI released enhanced footage, hoping someone would recognize the walk, the posture, the clothing. $500,000 were offered for information. Nothing came in, not one name, not one credible lead. Weeks became months, months became years. Investigators rotated out. Analysts retired. The case file grew heavier, but no closer to an answer. The man in the footage became something else, a ghost moving through a city full of cameras, someone who lived without leaving a trace. By year 3, investigators were convinced the suspect might never be identified. But then a small detail changed everything. A behavioral analysis team revisited the footage, focusing on the gait, the angle of the hips, the swing of the arms, the pressure on the right foot. It wasn't the walk of an athlete. It was the walk of someone trying to hide an imbalance in weight distribution. They ran the pattern through newer systems, matching it to thousands of archived surveillance clips from incidents unrelated to January 6th. And a match appeared in Virginia. A man walking his Chihuahua at night in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Richmond. Same gait, same hip rotation, same restricted arm swing. The footage was old, from a home security camera the owner had uploaded to a cloud service 3 years earlier. But the pattern was there. Investigators began a slow, quiet monitoring of the neighborhood. They observed a man named Brian Cole, Jr., 30 years old, unemployed, described by neighbors as polite but invisible. Someone who walked the same route every night with his small dog, keeping to himself, never speaking, avoiding eye contact. When agents reviewed public records, something else caught their attention. Cole had lived alone, minimal digital footprint, few friends, no social media. a pattern consistent with someone who could slip through a surveillance grid. They obtained additional footage from local businesses. Multiple cameras showed the same details: the controlled gait, the lowered right shoulder, the way he placed his foot slightly inward when stepping off a curb. The FBI moved in for quiet surveillance. They tracked his routine for weeks. No signs of employment, no signs of a social life. But something else stood out. He owned clothing similar to what was seen in the January 5th footage. Same style of backpack, same brand of shoes. Agents knew it was time. 2 mornings ago, before sunrise, they executed the warrant. Cole stepped outside with his Chihuahua, exactly as he always did. Agents approached. He didn't run. He didn't resist. He simply said, "I knew this day was coming." Inside his home, investigators found materials consistent with pipe bomb construction. Not enough to prove he built the original devices, but enough to tie him to the methodology. They found notebooks detailing routes through D.C., timings of patrols, and sketches of benches near the National Committee buildings. Most of the evidence was old, stored in boxes, like artifacts from a life he had already abandoned. In interviews, Cole offered no explanation. He requested a lawyer. He said nothing about motive. He said nothing about the devices. He said nothing about why he disappeared for 5 years. For investigators, the arrest is a major breakthrough, not just for the bomb case, but for the broader timeline of January 6th. Understanding what he intended to trigger and when could reshape interpretations of that day. Tonight, Cole sits in federal custody, awaiting indictment. If convicted, he faces decades in prison. The footage that exposed him, a grainy clip of a man walking his Chihuahua, now sits inside the case file as the key that unlocked a national mystery. It's a reminder that in a country full of cameras, almost no one is truly invisible. Not forever. Not when every step you take leaves a signature you can't erase. And for the first time in 5 years, investigators believe they finally know the face and the walk behind one of the most disturbing unanswered questions of January 6th. The truth didn't come from a confession. It came from a glitch in the way a man moved through the world, and a dog that walked beside him every night. You've been listening to True Crime Tales with WM, where we don't chase mysteries, we trace the places where answers disappear. Next time, another story, another question the world has never been able to solve.